A handsome man reached up to his face and plucked out his own eyes. "Thank you, my friend. These were only borrowed." The beautiful woman who had just married him screamed, but the forest had already swallowed her whole. How did the most sought-after woman in the village end up trapped in a land of bones? Let's go back to the beginning, because this story about a girl who chose beauty over character, a skull who borrowed perfection to deceive, and a rejected suitor whose rough hands pulled her from death started months before that terrible moment when borrowed beauty fell apart. Once upon a time, in a prosperous village where tradition ran as deep as the roots of the Iroko tree, there lived a young woman named Amara. She was 26 years old, and everyone agreed she was the most beautiful woman their eyes had ever seen. Her skin was smooth as polished mahogany. Her eyes sparkled like morning dew. Her smile could make the oldest men remember their youth and the youngest boys dream of manhood. But more dangerous than her beauty was the fact that she knew it. Amara worked as a trader in the market, selling cloth and beads. She didn't need to work. Men brought her gifts daily, but she enjoyed the admiration. The way people stopped mid-sentence when she walked past. The way women whispered with envy and men stared with hunger. Her mother, Mama Amara, watched this with growing worry. "My daughter," she said one evening as they prepared dinner, "beauty is like the harmattan wind. It comes, it dazzles, and then it passes. What remains is character." Amara laughed, tossing her braids over her shoulder. "Mama, you worry too much. My beauty isn't going anywhere, and when I marry, it will be to a man as perfect as I am." Her mother's face darkened. "Perfection doesn't exist in this world, Amara. Only spirits pretend to be perfect, and they do it to trap the foolish." Amara kissed her mother's cheek. "Then I'll marry a spirit, as long as he's handsome." She meant it as a joke. The forest heard it as an invitation. If you've ever been so confident you ignored every warning sign, hit that like button. This is about to get dark. The suitors came like rain in the wet season. First was Ikechukwu, the farmer, who everybody called Ike. He was 28, with strong arms built from years of working the land. His hands were calloused, his back slightly bent from labor, but his eyes were kind, and his heart was honest. When Ike and Amara were 13, he'd plucked the most fair, sweetest, and ripest mangoes from the forest, the one where people refused to go, and he'd bring them to her every day. Now, he brought her yams from his farm, the best he'd grown. "Amara," he said, standing in her family compound, "I don't have gold or fine clothes, but I have land that feeds families. I have hands that build, and I have a heart that sees you, not just your face, but who you are inside." Amara looked at his rough hands, dirt still under the nails despite his scrubbing. She looked at his sun-darkened skin, his calloused palms, his bent posture. "Your hands are too rough," she said, not unkindly, just stating facts. "Your back is bent. I deserve better than a farmer, Ike." Pain flickered across his face, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded slowly. "I hope you find what you are looking for, Amara, but if you ever need me, I'll be here." He walked away, and Amara's mother turned to her daughter with fury in her eyes. "That man has more worth in one finger than most men have in their entire bodies, and you reject him because his hands are honest?" "I reject him because I want more, Mama. Is that so wrong?" Her mother said nothing, but the look she gave her daughter carried the weight of prophecy. 5 more suitors came that month. One was a trader named Chukwuidi, wealthy and well-traveled. She rejected him because his teeth weren't straight. Another was the chief's son, Ikenna, handsome and powerful. She rejected him because he wasn't tall enough, not perfect enough. "What are you looking for?" her father demanded after the third rejection. "Do you want perfection? Perfection doesn't exist." Amara lifted her chin. "Then I'll wait until it does." Her father shook his head and walked away. That night, she heard her parents arguing in worried whispers, but she didn't care. She knew what she deserved. 3 weeks later, on market day, when the sun blazed high and the square overflowed with people, a stranger walked into the village. Every conversation stopped. He was tall, perfectly proportioned, dressed in white linen that seemed to glow in the sunlight. His skin was smooth, unmarked by labor or time. His eyes sparkled like stars. His smile was devastating, showing perfect white teeth. He moved through the crowd like water, effortless and mesmerizing, and he walked directly to Amara's stall. "I have traveled far," he said, his voice like honey and music combined, "searching for the most beautiful woman in all the land." He looked at her with those impossible eyes. "I have found her." Amara's breath caught. Every woman in the market stared with envy. Every man looked away, knowing they couldn't compete. Behind her, Amara's mother grabbed her arm suddenly. "Amara, something's wrong. His eyes, they don't—" "Mama, don't embarrass me," Amara hissed, pulling away. The stranger smiled wider. A dog nearby whimpered and ran. An old woman made a protective sign with her fingers, but Amara noticed none of it. She saw only perfection. Comment below if you've ever been so blinded by what you wanted that you missed every red flag. Also comment where you are watching this story from. I know you are as eager about this story as me, so let's continue. His name, he said, was Eze. The translation, King. How fitting. For 3 days, he courted her with gifts, gold beads, fine cloth, perfume that smelled like nothing from this earth. He spoke poetry. He knew exactly what to say, as if he could read her deepest vanities and feed them perfectly. On the 3rd evening, he proposed. "Marry me, Amara. Come to my village. My mother is old and cannot travel here, but she is eager to meet you. We will leave tomorrow." Amara's heart soared. Finally a man worthy of her beauty. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I'll marry you." Her mother fell to her knees that night. "Daughter, please, wait. Let us meet his family first. Let us know his village, his people. This is too fast, too strange." "You are jealous, Mama, because I found what you said didn't exist." "I'm terrified," her mother whispered, "because I think you found exactly what I warned you about." But Amara had already made up her mind. That night, unable to sleep for worry, her mother went to find Ike. She found him on his farm at dawn, already working. "Ike," she said, breathless from running, "I know my daughter rejected you. I know she hurt you, but I'm begging you, watch over her tomorrow. She's living with a stranger. Something is wrong. I can feel it." Ike's jaw tightened. He had every reason to refuse. Amara had humiliated him publicly, but he looked at the desperate mother's face and saw genuine terror. "I'll watch," he said quietly, from a distance. "But Mama, if she's chosen him, there's nothing I can do." "Just watch," the old woman begged. "Please, I'm afraid I'll never see my daughter again." The next morning, the village gathered to see Amara leave. It felt less like a wedding procession and more like a funeral. Women wept, men shook their heads, children stared with wide eyes. Amara wore her finest wrapper and her brightest smile. Eze stood beside her, impossibly handsome, impossibly perfect. Too perfect. Her mother embraced her one final time. "Remember, my daughter, if anything feels wrong, run. Don't be proud. Just run." "Nothing will be wrong, Mama. Stop worrying." They turned toward the forest, the path that led to Eze's village, he said. Behind them, hidden at the edge of the crowd, Ike watched, his heart heavy, his mind uneasy. When they disappeared into the trees, he waked 3 heartbeats. Then he followed. The forest was beautiful at first. Sunlight filtered through leaves, birds sang, flowers bloomed in colors that seemed almost too bright. Eze held Amara's hand and told her stories of their future, the fine house, the servants, the life of luxury. She walked on air, already imagining her triumph. "How much farther to your village?" she asked after an hour. "Not far," he said, smiling that perfect smile. "Not far at all." The path grew narrower. The trees pressed closer. The light began to fade, that it was barely midday. Strange sounds echoed from deep in the forest. Not animal sounds, something else. "What was that?" Amara asked, suddenly nervous. "Just the wind," Eze said, but his voice had changed, slightly, almost imperceptibly. They passed a twisted tree, its branches reaching like clawed fingers. A voice called from the tree, old, not quite human. "My friend, you are back already?" Amara stopped walking. "Who said that?" "No one," Eze said quickly. "Keep walking." But the voice came again, insistent. "Brother, you know the agreement. Return what you borrowed." Eze stopped. He turned to the tree and he smiled. "Ah, yes, I nearly forgot." He reached up to his face and plucked out his eyes. Amara screamed. He held them casually in his palm, 2 perfect eyeballs staring at nothing, and placed them gently in a hole in the tree trunk. "These were only borrowed. Thank you, my friend." Where his eyes had been, there were now empty sockets, black and bottomless. Amara tried to run. His hand shot out and gripped her wrist. His fingers were ice cold. His grip was iron. "We had an agreement, my wife. You said yes. There's no running now." She pulled and screamed and fought, but she might as well have been fighting stone. He began walking, dragging her along. Her mind couldn't concentrate what she had seen. This had to be a nightmare. She would wake up. She had to wake up. But the nightmare was only beginning. Smash that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will haunt your dreams. Amen. It still haunts mine. A rock spoke next, a deep voice rumbling from the stone itself. "Friend, my nose. I'll need it back." Eze stopped again, reached up to his face, and pulled off his nose. Just pulled it off like removing a mask. He handed it to the rock. His face now had a gaping hole where his nose had been. Empty. Wrong. Amara couldn't scream anymore. Her voice had died in her throat. She could only whimper. "Please," she begged. "Please, what are you?" He didn't answer, just kept walking, pulling her deeper into the forest. The path behind them vanished. She looked back and saw only thick, impenetrable bush. No way out, no way back. A spirit woman emerged from the shadows, beautiful and terrifying. "My skin, husband, you promised to return it before sunset." Eze nodded, and he began to peel. His skin came off like clothing, revealing white bone underneath. He handed the skin to the spirit woman, who wrapped it around herself and disappeared, laughing. Amara's mind broke. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Piece by piece, body part by body part, he returned what he'd borrowed. His legs to one spirit, his arms to another, his torso, his teeth, his tongue. With each removal, he became less human and more horror. And finally, all that remained was a skull, floating in the air, empty sockets staring, jaw moving when he spoke. "Almost home, my wife." She couldn't walk anymore. Her legs had given out. He dragged her through the dirt like a sack of grain. She thought of her mother's warnings, her father's anger, Ike's sad eyes. She thought, I deserve this. I chose this. And that thought was the most terrifying of all. Behind them, hidden in the shadows, Ike saw everything. His hands shook, his heart pounded, every instinct screamed at him to run, to save himself. But he thought of Mama Amara's tears. He thought of the girl Amara had been before pride consumed her. And he kept following. They emerged into a clearing, the Skull Village. Huts made from bones, paths lined with skulls, other spirits floating, living their mockery of mortal life. They greeted Eze cheerfully. You brought a wife. How wonderful. Fresh blood. They laughed. The sound was like breaking bones. Eze took Amara to a hut. Walls made from rib cages, floor covered in finger bones. This is our home, forever. She curled into a ball and wept. There was no escape. The forest had shifted. The mortal world was gone. She was trapped in the land of the dead, married to a skull, and she would never see her mother again. Days passed, or maybe it was hours. Time moved strangely here. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, could only stare at the bone walls and wish for death. But death wouldn't come. She was trapped between life and death, belonging to neither. The skull visited her each evening, trying to act like a husband, bringing her fruit that tasted like ash, speaking to her in that horrible voice that echoed from a jawbone with no tongue. She didn't fight anymore. What was the point? Then one night, she heard a voice, human, male, familiar. Amara. She looked up. Standing in the doorway of the bone hut was Ike. She thought she'd gone mad. You're not real, she whispered. I'm real, and I'm taking you home. Tears poured down her face. Why? Why would you come here? I was cruel to you. I rejected you. You should hate me. Ike knelt beside her. His rough, calloused hands, the hands she'd mocked, gently took hers. This isn't about what you did to me, Amara. This is about who you are under the pride. This is about saving someone who made a mistake. I can't leave. I'm his wife. It's done. Nothing is done until you are dead, and you're not dead yet. Behind them, the skull appeared in the doorway. You cannot take what is mine, farmer. Ike stood, facing the skull, a mortal man facing a spirit. She's not property. She's human. She doesn't belong here. The skull laughed, the sound like rattling bones. She chose me. She wanted perfection.
You are not perfection, Ike said, his voice steady. You are a lie wearing stolen parts. I'm imperfect, but I'm real, and I've come to take her back. The skull's laughter died. Then we have a challenge, mortal. Answer my riddle, and she's free. Fail, and you stay here forever. Ike's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Ask. The skull's voice echoed through the bone village and every spirit stopped to listen. What is more valuable? A perfect diamond that cuts the hand that holds it, or a rough stone that builds a home? Silence fell. The spirits waited. Amara held her breath. Ike looked down at his hands, rough, calloused, bent from years of honest labor. The hands Amara had rejected. He looked at the skull, perfect, hollow, stolen. The stone, he said quietly, because perfection that harms is worthless, but strength that builds even when it's scarred and rough and imperfect, that's what makes life possible. The skull screamed. The sound shattered bones, cracked the hot walls, made the earth tremble. Because truth burns spirits of deception. A path appeared, glowing, leading back to the mortal world. Run! Ike grabbed Amara's hand and pulled her toward the light. Behind them, the skull village erupted in rage. Spirits chased them, screaming, reaching with burned fingers. The forest fought them. Branches grabbed at their clothes, thorns cut their skin. The path tried to close, but Ike didn't let go of her hand. "Don't look back," he shouted. "Just run." Amara's legs burned. Her lungs screamed. She stumbled. Ike caught her, lifted her, carried her on his back. The bent back she had mocked now carried her to freedom. They burst through into the mortal world and collapsed on the river bank near the village. Sunlight. Real sunlight. The most beautiful thing Amara had ever seen. She was alive, but she was changed. Her hair had turned grey at the temples. Her face was gaunt, aged years in days. Her eyes had seen things they could never unsee. Ike helped her stand. His rough hands steadied her. "You are home," he said gently. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Saw the kindness in his eyes, the strength in his bent back, the beauty in his honest, rough hands. "You saved me," she whispered, "after everything I said to you, after how I treated you." That's what love does, Amara. It saves, even when it's rejected, even when it hurts. Her mother was running toward them, screaming her daughter's name, weeping with joy and relief. The village gathered. They stared at Amara's aged face, her haunted eyes. They knew something terrible had happened. That night, in her mother's arms, Amara told the story, every shameful detail. The village listened in horror and pity. When she finished, she turned to Ike, who sat quietly in the corner. "I judged you by your rough hands, but these hands pulled me from death." She stood before him, her whole body shaking. "I mocked your bent back, but that back carried me home." Tears streamed down her face. "I wanted perfection, and I found hell. You offered me real love, and I called it not good enough." The room was silent. Ike stood, walked to her, and did something unexpected. He stepped back. "Amara, I didn't save you so you would owe me. I saved you because I believe people deserve second chances, because I believe you can change." He looked at her with those kind eyes. "When you are healed, truly healed, if you want to begin again, I'll be here. But not because of death, only if you can love me for who I am, not just because I saved you." And he walked out into the night. Drop a like if you believe real love doesn't keep score, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Months passed. Amara healed slowly. The grey in her hair remained. The haunted look faded but never fully left. She worked quietly in the market. She helped her mother. She spoke to young girls who came to her, warning them about vanity, about judging by surfaces. She became known as the woman who married a skull and lived to tell the tale. And every day, from a distance, she watched Ike, watched him work his farm, help his neighbors, share his harvest with the poor, live with quiet integrity. And slowly, she fell in love. Not with what he could give her, not with gratitude, but with who he was. One morning at dawn, she walked to his farm. He was already working, bent over the soil, his rough hands planting seeds. "Ike?" He looked up, surprised. She knelt in the dirt beside him. "I'm ready, not because you saved me, but because I finally see you. And I want to spend my life learning to be as good as you already are." He studied her face, saw the sincerity there, the humility, the change. Slowly, he smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. "Then let's start again, properly this time." He held out his hand, rough, calloused, real. She took it and felt safer than she had ever felt in her life. Their wedding was simple, no gold, no spectacle. Just two people, honest and whole, choosing each other with open eyes. When they joined hands before the village, Amara looked at their intertwined fingers. "These," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "are the most beautiful hands in the world." And she meant it. Years later, when young girls came to her for advice, she told them the same thing every time. Beauty fades. Perfection is a trap.
But character, kindness, honest work, those things build lives that last. Amara still worked in the market and followed Ike to the farm sometimes, but her hands were still soft because Ike never let her work too hard. The story of Amara and the skull spread throughout the region. Until today, mothers told it to daughters, fathers to sons. And in the forest, the skull still haunts, still borrows beauty, still waits for the vain. Because vanity is the easiest trap to set, and pride the easiest prey to catch. If this story changed how you think about what matters, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell us in the comments what's one quality you once overlooked that turned out to be exactly what you needed. And before you go, subscribe for more African folktales that remind us that the best things in life are rarely perfect, they're just real. Until next time, don't chase borrowed beauty, choose and character. The rough hands that build are worth more than smooth hands that only destroy. Thank you for watching.